Hello. This is a brief message discussing the mini analysis 1. And since we're not able to meet in class on a Monday to talk about the grades you've gotten back, I wanted to just sort of review a couple notes with you. I do want to apologize for how long it took to get them back. It's hard to go back and forth through to make sure you're being consistent in your grading when you're doing everything online. That part of the slowdown and just sort of life has been more complicated, I think, for all of us right now. So I apologize for that, and I appreciate your patience. In light of that, by the way, mini analysis paper 2 has been delayed by a day. I gave you until the Tuesday, so a week from tomorrow, which would be, I guess, the 10th. So it's now marked as being due on the 10th and not the 9th. I gave you an extra day there just to try to help out and give you another chance, more importantly, really, to ask me questions. Anyway, back to mini analysis 1. Overall, I would say that the introductions people wrote in their papers were fine. Artifact descriptions were generally pretty good. Sometimes, though, people gave me a lot of background information that was sort of helpful, maybe not as helpful, and did less of explaining. So here's what the movie's about. Focus on the story of this person who does X and Y and Z, and just a short paragraph you can do that. And so that might have been some place where some people lost a point or two on artifact description. As we move into method description, this is a place where people lost points. One of the two ways you lost points, you probably lost 5 points right out of 10 right away if you didn't have a source that you used, or most of 5 points anyway, if you didn't have a source that you used that also used the method, right? And where you specifically used that source to talk about method. So that you would have been hit for that or had a deduction for that right away. Also, some people lost usually about 3 points or so out of those 10 because they were doing, say, narrative criticism. I would say, well, you look at the characters, the narrator, the setting, or is it called scene in narrative criticism? I forget, right? Those elements, and never talked about coherence and fidelity. Like, I never talked about it as part of the method, and that the goal behind the whole method was to figure out what are the values that are being conveyed, right? So if you go back and look at the guide sheet for the mini analysis, it talks about looking at the principles of the method, not just like here are the steps to it. But even then, if you're not talking about fidelity and coherence, you're missing a bunch of the method. And likewise, in fantasy theme analysis, some people not talking about the important symbolic cues, why fantasies matter, and very importantly, their participation in rhetorical vision. So you would have lost some for that. And if you didn't do it in method description, it's possible, though not always, that then when you did your analysis, you didn't talk about coherence and fidelity, or you didn't talk about how all those elements of that fantasy were in fact a fantasy. Some people never really talk about fantasy, even though it's fantasy theme analysis. And then whether or not it participates in rhetorical vision, and if so, what is that vision? How does it participate in it? How does it challenge it, maybe? Right? That wasn't there, and so you would have lost points in analysis under your analysis being complete because you're missing some key parts of it, so it wasn't complete. In conclusion, that is to say the conclusion of the paper, there were sometimes points lost, like a couple, usually out of 5, if you either just reviewed what you found in your paper and sort of said, and thank you, right? Or if you, ironically, just focused on the implications. So this is important because this sort of image plays into, you may or may not have said it, rhetorical vision or a sort of value set the audience has that perpetuates this other thing. Some people did that for impacts, which is really great and important, but then forgot to say, so overall I found that, that this was a very compelling narrative because of these reasons, right, sort of summarizing that and then going to impacts. Or some people did all the summary and no impacts. So I need to make sure you're doing both of those. So those are really the big things there. And I want to encourage you, those rhetorical applications that you've been doing, if you look at them and say, well, we're done with that now, but for narrative and fantasy theme analysis, it was asking you to do all those things, right? To what are the, action themes and the plot themes action themes and setting themes and all that. And then, okay, and so how is this a fantasy? How is it part of rhetorical vision? So those rhetorical applications are really meant to make sure that you understand how that method works and to have you move through in a smaller way how to do the analysis. So you might want to look back at those rhetorical applications sometimes as a sort of guide for doing the method. I'm really trying to give you all the tools and resources you need to do these. All right, that was all for now. Overall, I was just sad to see some people not get all their points, but that's okay. I mean, overall, I think you're going to be fine. And very importantly here, depending upon what mini analysis 2 looks like, if mini analysis 2 is sort of universally stronger for everybody, I am willing to weight the second mini analysis more heavily than the first analysis. So, all right. Thank you, everybody.